It's a fantastic privilege to be here. I love being in Washington and interacting with the Congress and the administration, but it's great to get outside of Washington to the real United States. And there's nowhere more real than a place like San Angelo. And it's a great pleasure to be here and in the fort and meeting the children and experiencing true Texan experience. I'm very fortunate that my neighbor in Washington, D.C., and next door neighbor, Mario Castillo, is from here. And when he heard I was coming to Texas, he said, "You have to come to San Angelo." So here I am.
Everybody, a big Fort Concho Elementary School welcome to my friend and neighbor, the Ambassador of the European Union to the United States of America, Ambassador David O'Sullivan.
Mario, thank you very much, and good morning and welcome to you all. And it's a great pleasure to be here. And as my daughter said, I know that you kids are delighted that you've got some time off school, but I'm going to make you work. So I want to know if you can say welcome to me in Spanish. Hola, very good, excellent. And now I'm going to teach you how you can say hello in French. So that's bonjour. So let me hear a big bonjour. Bonjour. Thank you very much. No, it's a great privilege to be here. This is also my first time in Texas, and I'm delighted that my good friend and neighbor in Washington, Mario, has made it possible for me to have a true Texan experience. I was in Houston on Tuesday, Austin yesterday, but it's a great pleasure to be in San Angelo and to witness this fort, which is a part of the history of the building of this great country and this great state, and then to see a tombstone of a namesake who presumably is related to me, going back a long time, and the enormous links which tie Europe and America together. Our history, shared history, but also our shared values, our commitment to democracy, the rule of law, human rights. And at the time of the awful events in Paris, and we're very grateful to the enormous outpouring of sympathy that the American people have shown. I see the flag at half-mast everywhere I've traveled in Texas. I've seen that, and I'd like you to know that we're very grateful for that solidarity. And it's at times like this you know who your friends are. And I think above all else, it's the links of friendship across the Atlantic that tie us together, have tied us in the past and will tie us in the future. And I hope that you'll get the opportunity to travel to Europe, maybe become the United States ambassador to the European Union, as Mario has suggested, or become President of the United States. Why not? Everything is possible, as he said. And it's great to meet you today, great to be here, and I look forward to spending the rest of the day in this wonderful city. Thank you.
Yes, very much so. Tell her to come in.
Thank you. It's so nice meeting you. Check your school.
I will.
This is among the best preserved frontier forts west of the Mississippi, and it's a total accident of geography and building material. This is the reason why the place is still here. This is limestone. If you make it out of wood, it rots. Right. You make it out of adobe, it melts. Limestone's the thing forever. 2/3 of this post is original. 1/3 is rebuilt. This is one of the rebuilt barracks. This one, the one next door, the 2 mess halls are rebuilt. Those 2 barracks are original. All of the officers' quarters are original. This was your home. If you joined the Army between 1866 and about 1890, this is pretty much the way it would have looked. Now, fresh bread and strong coffee was the basis of every meal. Breakfast was usually bacon or salt pork, maybe mush. Lunch, which they called dinner in those days, that was the big meal of the day. And the Army fed you well because that was the middle of the day, and then supper was an afterthought because the workday's over. Why should she feed you? So it was coffee, bread, maybe a little cheese, and that was it.
ideal job I could ever imagine. My great passion is European integration, but I also have an enormous love for this country where I came as a young child in the 60s, attended school in Castillo. Most of my family is actually, I have more relatives in America than I do in Ireland. I love Washington, it's a fascinating place, but I also know enough about America to know it's not really America. And in fact, Washington is held in about as much esteem in the rest of the United States as Brussels pretty much is in the rest of Europe. So it's great to get out to Washington, and I try 3 or 4 days every month to travel around this great country and experience its full diversity. And it's a great privilege to be here in Texas. And of course, I always inevitably end up going to the state capitol. I end up going to the economic center. So I was in Austin yesterday, I was in Houston. But I also try to have the opportunity, and this is uniquely presented to me, to actually go a bit deeper into the culture and the economy and society of the states. And to be here in San Angelo is a really great privilege and pleasure. And I had a wonderful warm welcome so far. I fired a cannon and didn't blow up in my face. That's a welcome character. And nobody else was injured as far as I can tell. And I learned a lot about the history of the city and the role it played in the making of the West, and the role of Texas in the building of this great country, which has a fascinating history, and much has been suffered and endured by people out when we saw the fort today and the conditions that people lived in 100 years ago or 200 years ago. People suffered a lot to build the society from which you now benefit, and that's the great strength of this country. Of course, I'm in San Angelo because you have your best ambassador in Washington, the real ambassador living in our street, which is Mario, who is the best ambassador for San Angelo and its people. And when you heard I was coming to Texas, I can tell you there was absolutely no way I was not going to make it to San Angelo. And all those people he was thanking, I know exactly what they're at, the emails, the text messages, and the persistent reminders about how we're going to fix up the visit. But thanks a lot, Mario. I really appreciate it. It's a very great privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, you couldn't begin a speech these days and no European good without talking about the horrible events of Paris. I think we're all deeply shocked by what has happened. And I really want to say on behalf of the people of France and the people of all of Europe how deeply touched we are by the outpouring of sympathy and warmth and solidarity that we've had from America. We really are deeply touched by that sense of solidarity and support. And I see we have some members of the American military here. We have never forgotten the sacrifice of American young men in two world wars and how they died to help Europe be free, and the feeling of the continuity of that today. And we know who our friends are in our time of greatest difficulty. So I want to thank you for that and to say that we really appreciate it. The other two comments I'd like to make about what happened in Paris are that the purpose of terrorism is to terrorize. Its only end, it has no purpose other than to create chaos, to destabilize societies, to drive wedges between societies, to encourage people to become suspicious of their neighbors, to fear going out the door, to be afraid to travel. That's what they want. And we must not give them that victory. We have, of course, and the people of France, and you've seen the security forces are acting to try and apprehend the networks that were responsible for this. People working closely in Belgium. I have two people in our delegation in Washington who come from Europol, the European Police Agency, who work very closely with the American law enforcement agencies, and they provided tremendous assistance both after the Charlie Hebdo attacks in January and now. And that's a very important response. We have to have a security response. But we must also have a response that says we are not going to let you terrorize us. We are not going to let you divide our societies. We are not going to let you undermine the way of life that we cherish and which is so valuable. And I think we have very much to push back against the notion that terrorism will make us fundamentally alter the way of life that we cherish. The other thing is, of course, that in Europe at the moment, as you know, we have a refugee crisis. It's not a migration crisis, it's a refugee crisis. And I think it's very, very important not to conflate the issue of terrorism with the trauma of the people fleeing conflict and war in their own societies and seeking to come to Europe to find peace and tranquility and build a better future for their families. It's a challenge. It's not easy. The numbers are such that it's not easy to provide the reception to these people that we would have wished, even if people have, I think, been extremely generous in opening their doors, their schools, their town halls, to try and accommodate refugees in the numbers that are coming across our frontiers. We have a difference to you in the United States in the sense these people are actually on our doorstep. When the United States takes refugees, and I think it's important that this be understood, you take them from camps outside of the United States, and you take probably about 2 years to process their application to come to the United States. They're very thoroughly vetted, and that's a very managed and civilized process that you have, and by the way, it does you great credit. Unfortunately, we don't quite have that luxury. These people are already on our doorstep, they're already there with their families, with their babies, with their struggles, and we have to try and accommodate them. And this is what we've been doing over the last few months, and we will continue to do. And I think we will find a solution to this crisis. Sometimes, being in Washington over a year, I sometimes feel I've gone from crisis to crisis. When I arrived, it was all about Russia and Ukraine. By the way, a crisis that hasn't gone away. Then it was the Euro crisis, and it was Greece. Was Greece going to leave the Euro? So we've had that for a number of months. And now I find myself dealing with the refugee crisis, which of course is also hits the headlines. And of course now we have terrorism and the horrible events in Paris. But I think what's very important to understand is that to a certain extent Europe has always been built through crisis. We started building an integrated Europe after the Second World War because we felt after 2 world wars which had been created in Europe, it was time we found another way of doing business in Europe. Time we found a different way of living together that would not always end in war. And that's what we've been trying to do when we started with the economic community, started with 6 countries, then the United Kingdom and Ireland and Denmark joined in 1973. Very important because the initial reconciliation was between France and Germany. Then to bring the United Kingdom, Great Britain, into the EU was actually a very important legal statement. One which is still contested, and we will see when they have their referendum whether they stay. I believe they will, but it shows you that it's still an undecided issue there. Then we have gone on to subsequent enlargements. We became a haven for countries emerging from totalitarianism. Greece in 1981 after the colonels, Spain and Portugal after Salazar and Franco in 1985. And of course the ultimate reunification of the continent, where we brought in 10 countries from the former Soviet bloc of Central and Eastern Europe. I can honestly say that the European Union cannot claim credit for having brought about the fall of the Berlin Wall. I can say that the European Union can claim credit for the fact that what followed was not chaos and a descent into violence and disorder, but was in fact an extremely orderly transition from communist regimes to liberal democracies based on the rule of law, the market economy, respect for the rights of the individual, and freedom. And that's a remarkable transition that all those countries have made thanks to membership of the European Union. And this has enabled us along the way to build a single economy. We are the 28 member states of the European Union with the largest economy in the world. So respectfully, when the United States and China argue about which has the biggest economy, forgive me, but you're arguing for second or third place. we have a single currency for 19 countries, the second reserve currency in the world. We've had our difficulties, but it has brought increased prosperity and stability. I don't believe that the crisis of 2008 would have been handled better by Europe if we had 19 different currencies. We had 12 different currencies during the oil shocks of the 70s, and I can assure you currencies went off like fireworks in every different direction. Competitive depreciation. Devaluing your currency is great if no one else can do it. When you're as closely bound together as we are in Europe, if every country devalues, there's absolutely no benefit except a downward spiral. So having a single currency has been a great attribute. We have borderless travel. You can travel from Helsinki to Lisbon by car without ever showing your passport or having to change the currency. And this is a remarkable achievement. I know some people are now saying, well, maybe can you maintain that freedom and openness in the face of terrorism? Well, we will not allow terrorists to send us back to a place where we came from, which is when we had barbed wire fences around our member states. I don't think that you would feel putting up frontiers between your states would represent an improvement in your security, and we don't believe it will represent an improvement in your security either. So we have succeeded in building all of these things over this period. It's not easy because we have 28 democracies. We're doing this through democratic approval. We are fundamentally committed to that. If the United Kingdom democratically votes that they want to leave the European Union, they may leave. I hope they won't, and I hope that they will stay, because I think that would be hugely important. But it's a possibility. And that's why sometimes the European Union can look pretty messy as we deal with crises, because we have to actually get 28 sovereign countries and parliaments to agree. It takes time. We're a bit, Winston Churchill said of the United States, you can rely on the United States always to do the right thing, but only after they've exhausted every other alternative. Frankly, he could have said it about the European Union. We try everything that doesn't work until we finally hit on what does work. And I just urge you to be reassured as to the enormous resilience of Europe. The number of times I heard the demise of the euro predicted, and it didn't happen because people underestimate just how strong the political glue that holds the European Union together is. And that will get us through this refugee crisis, that will get us through the undoubted challenge of terrorism, which we're going to have to face probably for a number of years, because there's not going to be a magic solution to this. And in all of this, I want to emphasize the strong importance of transatlantic ties. I said that in my letter to President Obama, but the United States has been a strong ally of Europe at all stages, and also a strong supporter of European unification and integration, from the Marshall Plan right through to the present day. And the strength of our relationship is huge. We are both hugely interested in Asia, and we should be. Asia is a very important continent with a great future, and we will all want to be doing trade with China, with India, with ASEAN. But we should never forget that the transatlantic economic corridor is the single most important economic corridor in the world. We are both much more heavily invested in each other than either of us is in anybody else. American companies make more money out of their investments in Belgium than they do out of their investments in China. This is not to say that China will not be important, but it's just to indicate the extent to which our economies are intertwined and interdependent. And we are moving now towards the negotiation of a landmark trade agreement between the United States and the European Union, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TTIP for short. This negotiation has been going on for 2.5 years. We hope we will conclude it next year. And it will mean a huge amount of additional economic opportunity. When I look at the relationship with Texas, you have been through some difficult times. I understand that. This is still a thriving and vital economy, but I understand that people have suffered a bit in the downturn. The decline in oil prices has had its impact here. When I was in Houston, people were optimistic about the future of this state, also because you're reinventing yourselves with renewable energy, with alternatives, with petrochemicals, with high-tech industries. When I was in Austin, I heard about the very dynamic high-tech economy that's developing in Texas. So I'm sure you have a great economic future. But Europe is one of your main export destinations. We are a main purchaser of your products, whether it's energy or whether it is finished products or high-tech products. We have many European companies who are heavily invested in Texas and create jobs here. Nearly 250,000 jobs in Texas are owed to European investment in this state. And there are many Texas companies invested in Europe creating jobs for Europeans. Our economies are inextricably linked. And I hope that through the trade agreement that we can build, which is simply an enabler for entrepreneurs to go out and do business, that this will provide reduced tariffs, lower costs of doing business, lack of not duplicating unnecessarily testing requirements. For example, if I take the area of pharmaceutical products, we both have very high standards of health for the consumer of pharmaceutical products. The FDA is a fantastic agency that protects the health and safety of American consumers. We have the European Medicines Agency that does the same for people in Europe. Actually, the tests they ask from companies are remarkably similar on both sides of the Atlantic. But do you think we will recognize in Europe the tests you do here, or the FDA will recognize the tests we do in Europe? And it seems to us that this is maybe something we could approach slightly differently without in any way diminishing the health and safety requirements or the protection of our consumers. Just one illustration of an area in which we believe we could reduce dramatically the cost of doing business across the Atlantic and increase business activity to your benefit and to our benefit. And we know that economic activity in the United States is like as it is in Europe, is ultimately local. And that's why it's great to be able to visit a community such as this and understand how you see your perspective on these things. I want to conclude by saying that, come back to the point I made about values. Ultimately, what unites the United States and the European Union are our shared values. I wrote when you get to go to the White House to present your credentials, you're asked to write something in the guest book, which is a great privilege. And of course, you imagine that what you write is going to be particularly significant, and you realize that there were 20 people before you, 20 people after you that day. So it may be that in the broad sweep of history, what I wrote will not actually be remembered. But I was very struck by something said by President Obama, and I picked it up. He said in his speech that the United States was about how to build a better history. And when the first settlers came from Europe to America, they were fleeing a society that had stagnated, that was repressed, no religious freedom, no democracy, and feudal systems where people were dragged down and constant fighting. They came to America and saw the possibility, using European ideas, but to build a better history for themselves. And they built this great country. But it's based on the same values that we have in Europe, which is democracy, freedom, individual freedom, the rule of law, human rights, the liberal market economy. And these are the things in Europe after the Second World War. We also tried to figure out how we could build a better history for ourselves, how we could build a different way of living in Europe that was not always ending war. And this is what unites us. And in the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen, those values are going to be challenged. Mr. Putin will tell us managed democracy is a better way of doing it. But we know and live every day the fact that our way of life, our democratic system, our respect for the individual, the freedom of expression, the rule of law, that this delivers not only better economic outcomes, but also better human outcomes and better life for our people. And we're going to have to work together in the 21st century against all the challenges we face, whether this is what Mr. Putin is doing in Ukraine, whether what is happening with ISIS in the Middle East, or terrorism in Africa, or conflict in Asia between China, Japan, and South Korea. These are going to be challenging situations, and we know that by working together, the United States and Europe can achieve things that we can never do on our own. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you. It's a real privilege to be here in San Angelo. I'll be forever indebted to Mario. He won't let me forget it, I know. That he brought me here with my daughter and maid, and I'm really delighted to have this opportunity. I'm happy to answer some questions if you'd like to before we finish today, and I hope to have the opportunity maybe to meet with more of you individually in the course of the day. Thank you very much indeed.